they say, hey man, like we want you back. We're gonna fight for you to come back. And the pride was like, nope, because they don't respect me. And what you got to remember is, man, the guys who you go to war for, the guys that you fight with, that you're training with when nobody's around, that's who you really doing it for. You know, God first and foremost, and and yourself, and your family. But those are the people that you're doing it for, and that should have been enough, but it wasn't.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of More Than 94, where former athletes redefine success. I'm your host, NeNe, and today's guest is Jonathan Victorian Jr. His primary role is an ambassador for Christ, husband to Ashley, and father of 7. So welcome to the podcast, Vic. Well, I call him Vic. So welcome to the podcast, Vic. I'm glad you can be on today. So the gist of it, and is I explain to every guest that I'm trying to highlight stories of people that went professional other than sports. So since you played football at Arkansas State, but you decided to go professional, and we'll get into that today. So just kind of walk us through how you got into your specific sport and how has that led to what you do now.
Yes. So first and foremost, thank you, NeNe, for having me on this podcast. This is something that is a great privilege and I don't take lightly. So I just want to first and foremost just say thank you. But when it comes to being an athlete, athlete is something that's always been in my blood. I come from a lineage of athletes, granted non-professional, and I think that it was more so of not just the athletic portion, but everything that goes outside of the athletic portion, or why some of my family members didn't go professional. But I've always been an athlete. So growing up, it was what sport are you playing? Not if you're going to play sports. And I'm a little bit older, so it was, hey, you play a sport for every season. So growing up, I played football in the fall. Then football went to basketball, and then basketball went to baseball, and then in the summertime, it was, if you're not playing like an AAU travel basketball, then you at the park, and at the park you playing whatever. So growing up in my childhood, that's what it was for me. And something with my dad. My dad was big on, hey, when it comes to college time, y'all gonna get a scholarship. That's you gotta get a scholarship. So that was embedded in a young age of, hey, you're gonna play a sport, but you're not just playing a sport just to play a sport. You're playing a sport to achieve a scholarship so that your college can get paid for it. So then what happened was, as I began to grow, baseball was the first to go. And I left baseball in like middle school, and then I transitioned into basketball. And then going into high school, I had the hoop dreams. I thought I was, and speaking to a hooper, hoopers know hoopers, but also hoopers know when they come across people who ain't got it to get it to the next level. Yeah. And the thing about basketball that I have so much respect for is usually 15 people on the team, and that person at the end of the bench can go. So, I had hoop dreams going into high school. I played AAU basketball. But as I got closer to junior year, it was a reality check of, hey, man, you're going to have to pivot. Because this ain't going to be it. And it's not to say that I was garbage, but there's levels to it. And by the grace of God, I understood that, at a young age, I'm going to have to do something different. So I pivoted to football. And my junior year, I wanted to play football, but my mom took us on a trip, and we went to Jamaica, and it was cool. But I remember getting back right before school started, and I missed fall camp. Ooh. So I called the coach, and I said, "Hey, coach, I was out of town. I just got back. I want to come out and play football." He was like, "Yeah, see you next year." Well. And I was crushed because I had finally just come to the realization that basketball is not going to be it. I'm pivoting to football, and I can't play.
Ooh.
So that was like another reality of, um, you know, when as you get older, mommy and daddy, no matter what they say, they can't come and bail you out.
Yep.
And so I had to sit out my whole junior year and just watch. And watching did something to me, because as I watched, that hunger and that thirst to get out there on the field just continued to build up and build up. So I didn't even play football my junior year. And then when senior year rolled around, I resorted back to Little League because in Little League I played quarterback. And so I went out for quarterback in high school, and I had some competition, and he was younger. And here's another lesson for my athletes out there: if you're not, if there's no separation when you're competing for a position, and you
Mm-hmm.
have somebody that's younger, a smart coach is going to roll with the younger person because they have more time to mold, and that's what happened. I'm going into my senior year. This young man who I was competing with, he would think he was going to his sophomore year, and so they chose him to be the starting quarterback. But because I was an athlete, going back to how the conversation started, because I was an athlete, they stuck me out at corner. And so I didn't even really know much about corner defensive back, but because I played basketball, a lot of what I did in basketball translated over to football. So it was just like, hey, when the ball goes up in the air, go
Yeah.
get it. As a result, my senior year, I led St. Louis in interceptions.
Oh, dang. I
And
didn't know
we
that.
played, yeah. And my high school was, I went to Pattonville. I originally started off with Chaminade, transferred, went to Pattonville, and it was in 6A. So 6A, St. Louis, we in the suburban north. Back in
Yeah, I'm Petty
2000.
Kirkwood. I'm Kirkwood.
Hey, that's big boy. That's where the big boys and the big girls play.
Yeah, yeah.
So, to be leading in a category like that,
Yes.
in our area, that said a lot. So it was kind of just confirmation of, all right, now I'm in my lane. And from there, as the season went on, they threw me on offense, and I think it was something ridiculous, like where I only had like 7 or 8 passes thrown my way, but I think like 6 or 7 of them were touchdowns. So it was just like, man, this is coming natural. So then from there, then I started to get the recruiting, and you
Okay.
had like the small Division 1 AA schools coming in, some D2 schools, because I didn't have that recognition and that exposure. Because another thing for my athletes who they're trying to go to the NFL, they're trying to go to the NBA, your junior year is critical, and I missed my whole entire junior year. But that doesn't mean that God can't still do what only He can do and give you grace. So I had missed that, so I got the lower Division 1 schools, D2 schools. They started coming in. Only problem was my grades sucked, and I'm
No.
just being honest. It's the plainest way to put it. My grades was trash. So, they were coming to my coach, and man, I could see this the heartbreak and the disappointment in his face. Not so much in me, but just the situation of, man, you can't go to these schools because you don't have the grades to go. So then, what ended up happening was, um, a junior college came in, and a lot of junior colleges started coming in, but this one particularly in Kansas, in Fort Scott, Kansas, the coach had went to Pattonville, and I didn't know that, and he had been watching me, so I ended up signing with them on scholarship to go to junior college, and I went to junior college, and when I went to junior college, another eye opener in regards to, um, everybody's good.
Everybody's good.
Everybody's an athlete. And so now you're dealing with who's going to get up earlier and put the work in. When guys are on the game and playing NCAA, who's out on the field doing drills, who's in the weight room, who's going to be persistent and consistent to causing that separation. And I kid you not, NeNe, when I first got to JUCO, this was like something I had never experienced before, because when you go to a Division 1 school, and this is not a shot, but it kind of is, like it's the cream of the crop, because you've been told that you're good, you're coming in, you
Yep.
got the name. Whereas you go to junior college, you got guys that didn't got kicked out, you got guys that for whatever reason they trying to get back there, so they're hungry, they're thirsty. It's dog eat dog world. And so when I first got to junior college, I think our safety might have been like 21 or 22. Like, this is a grown man, and I think he started school late or something like
Oh
this. So
Lord.
I'm just like, dude, I graduated 137 pounds soaking wet. And I'm competing with guys. This dude 190,
Yeah.
195, and he just, 225. So I'm like, whoa, what is really going on here? And I kid you not, when I finished my first day of workouts, I came into the cab the next morning for breakfast, and I had to crawl my arms up on the plate and I flop them down on the table, grab a spoon and put my face into my bowl and eat my breakfast because I couldn't move. The lactic acid had built up so
Hey.
much because my little body had never worked out. And now I'm getting into not just the physical, but the mental. And it was like, okay, do I even want to do this?
Yeah.
Because when you had a workouts where it's like you start to question
Question
if
life.
I really want to do this, is this really for me?
Right.
I was dealing with that very, very often. And to speed the story up, I was there for the summer. This was during the summer of 2007, and I was dealing with a lot of that. Then you're dealing with the coaches. Coaches, they look great. They're your best friend when they're recruiting, and then it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde. And once them parents leave,
Listen,
they go
shine
from
your life
0
away.
to 100 real quick. And so dealing with that, and honestly, I was just mentally weak. And what I ended up doing was I ended up saying, hey, this ain't for me. And I ended up going back home. I called my mom. Mama being mama, she came and got me. And I went back home. And I saw my pops, and he's like, dude, what are you doing? Because my parents got divorced when I was 11. And so stayed with my mom. And I went back home, and I saw my pops, and he's like, what are you doing? Ain't you supposed to be at school? And told him the story, told him I quit. And he's just looking like, what? No, that's not going. So he picked up the phone. He called the coach.
Oh.
And he was like, hey, I just want to apologize for my son. Like, is there any way he could come
He
back?
coming back tomorrow.
He coming back. So I went back. Here's another lesson. A lot of lessons. My life is lessons on lessons upon lessons. When I went back, they were like, yeah, he can come back. But what they didn't say was they had already gotten two more people for my position.
Man.
From like the week or two that I was gone. And I was at the end of the depth chart to the point where I was starting, I was going with the ones. I wasn't even practicing when we was doing like team and stuff like that because they buried me in the bench, and rightfully so. And they also were looking like, hey, this guy, same guy just quit. What's different? What changed? Yeah. So let's put him in this situation and see how he does. And I failed because I'm like, man, I didn't come back for this. So I quit again for the second time. And I went back home and I'm like, man, I ain't even going to see my father.
Oh Lord. Sorry.
I don't even want to have that. I don't even want to have that conversation. So, fall of 2007, Mr. You know, Mr. Most likely to succeed athletically is at home in St. Louis working at Quizno Subs in the fall of 2007. And I have a really tight knit group of friends who I've known since second grade. And I came back to them and they were like, dude, I don't know what you got going on, but essentially, make a long story short, they're like, bro, we ain't fooling with you if you not on nothing.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh, that was some tough love. And so I was like, man, what do I need to do? And so in the spring of 2008, I went to Lindenwood just to take some classes. And because of my athleticism, I had a highlight tape still, and I had one of my high school teammates that was at Lindenwood. Lindenwood is was a small school in St. Charles. Lindenwood has grown tremendously now, but back during this time in 2008, it was a smaller school, and they were in NAIA in football. And they gave me a little scholarship money, and I was doing some spring football. And there at Lindenwood, I'm like, man, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. So I took my academics seriously. I think I finished with close to a 3.0, which for me, that's like a 5.0. And after the spring of 2008, in the summer of 2008, that same group of friends that was like, bro, we're not fooling with you. I went to them, and some of them were training. So I started training with them, and I'm like, hey, man, Like, what's the move? And they're like, we're gonna send your highlight tape to pretty much every Division I school that we can send it to. Mm-hmm. And that's what we did all summer for 2008. And I went into the summer of 2008 not knowing where I was going to be at school in the fall of 2008. And it just so happened that as that time got closer and closer, Arkansas State, and it was Memphis, Arkansas State, the coach from Arkansas State picked up the phone and he called my dad. And he was like, hey, why is this young man not at Mizzou? Why is he not at Kansas? Why is he not? He's naming all these Big 12 schools that's surrounding the Midwest, and he's like, why is he not there? And my dad just told him flat out, hey, his grades sucked, and he went to JUCO and he quit. And you know how dads are. I'm the same way now. It's like, man, I'm not about to sugarcoat your story. I'm gonna tell you exactly how it was. That's what my dad did. And he said, the coach said, hey, he can come down as a preferred walk-on. And he can earn himself a scholarship. And so we visited Arkansas State, and we visited Memphis in the same day. And when I went to Arkansas State, went to Jonesboro, and it's not the Jonesboro that it is now. Yeah. And it just felt right. Just had a piece there, and ended up going to Arkansas State in the fall of 2008. And I couldn't play right away. They did this thing that was called a prop, and I had to prop, and I could lift weights. I couldn't even practice. I could only lift weights, so I lifted weights with the team. John Arcee, and he did like different workouts. He did different workouts with me, and really it was just, hey, focus on your grades and get stronger and get bigger, and that's what I did. And then in 2000, the spring of 2009, that's when I could practice, and that's when I could start doing team involvement and activities. And so did really well, caught the attention of the other coaches. And then going into the season of 2009, my second semester of my freshman year, which was in the spring, having all the success on the field in practice, and I missed it academically again because that popularity and that recognition came quick, and as a result, grades started slipping. And my grades were so terrible to the point that even though I went to summer school and I almost had like around a 3.0, we got to go into fall camp. I think it's the week before fall camp. I'm on the track and I'm training. And I get a call from the same coach, Coach Gilbert. Shout out to Tony Gilbert. Coach Gilbert. Coach Gilbert, he believed in me. And I get a call from him going into fall camp of 2009. And I could just hear disappointment in his voice. And it was like a father just calling a son. And you could just sense the sorrow. And I'm like, man, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm putting the work in for camp. I'm ready. This is what I've been waiting for. And he says, son, what the H you doing? And I'm like, coach, I'm out here at the track. I'm like, you can come out, you can look through the office and see me. I'm at the track, I'm getting it in. And he's like, no, you're not eligible. And my heart just sunk. And he's like, you can't play. And I found myself right back in the same situation that I came in, with my grades and academically not being able to prove myself. And so I couldn't even go to fall camp in 2009. And because I was so embarrassed, I couldn't go home. Like, pridefully, I couldn't go home. I couldn't pick up the phone and call my mom and my family and be like, hey, I'm ineligible. So I just bummed around and stayed on my teammates' couches. And they would be gone all day because fall camp is sun up to sundown. And even when the sun down, you still there. And I bummed out for all of fall camp. And then the fall came, I found myself right back on the same regiment, being able to work out. I think I was able to practice. And then that season went by. And now I haven't played football since 2006, the fall of 2006. I haven't played in an actual game since the fall of 2006. And this is 2009 going into 2010. And in 2010, spring comes around. I have another good spring, but at this point, it's like, hey, this dude I'm the classified now. I'm labeled. This kid is great on the field, but he is a mess in that classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And so, spring of 2010, had a great spring camp. Summer, got it in. My grades were good. And so, the fall of 2010, I remember it like it's yesterday. We went into Auburn, and that was my first game since 2006, since November 3rd, 2006. We played Auburn at Auburn. That was the year that they won the national championship with Cam, and that was my first game um, in football. So that was almost 4 years of not playing in the game. And so fast forward, 2010 goes well. We have a switch up in coaching. 2011 comes. I get my scholarship. And then 2011, I get my scholarship, and then 2012, going into my senior year, it's like all that I've been through, all that I've worked for. Here it is. It's time. The time has come. Only to within like a few games of my senior season, um, we had an incident, and it was we had rules. One of the rules was you can't wear earrings, regardless of how petty it may sound. Can't wear earrings. I go into the facility. I got my earrings on, and basically I'm disobeying the rules, not submitting to authority. Coach gets highly upset. I'm supposed to have discipline the next morning. I'm just at this point. I'm frustrated. I'm upset. He's just a young male who really doesn't know how to handle things maturity. I'm immature.
Mm-hmm.
And so I respond the wrong way. And the next morning I go to weights like nothing ever happened. And they're like, hey, coach want to see you. I go to my position coach, and he basically says that he doesn't know what to do with me. He walks me into the head coach at the time, and he's like, "Hey, you're a senior." Going back to my seniors, my older folks, like if you're not buying into the system and you're not somebody that's essentially a extension of a coach on the field, man, they're looking to remove space,
Right.
and that's what it was. And so he was like, "Hey, we don't need you. You can go home." And I ended up getting kicked off the team.
Mm.
And my senior year, I ended up getting kicked off the team. I'm super prideful. My quarterback, who is a legend at Arkansas State, by the way, he comes, and our linebacker, they come to my room in CP in the Collegiate Park, and they say, "Hey man, like we want you back. We're gonna fight for you to come back." And the pride was like, "Nope," because they don't respect me. And what you got to remember is, man, the guys who you go to war for, the guys that you fight with, that you're training with when nobody's around, that's who you really doing it for. God first and foremost, and
Right.
yourself, and your family. But those are the people that you're doing it for, and that should have been enough, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going back to St. Louis, and I went home to St. Louis, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I opened up. I think I was in Romans, and it was talking about submitting to authority. And so, I'm in the faith now, walking with the Lord, and it's just like I blew it. And so I go back to Arkansas State. I still got one class. I don't graduate until the winter, December of 2012. I apologize to all my coaches, my teammates, and the head coach. He says, "All right, let me think about it. I'm gonna call you." And it is to this very day, I'm still waiting on that call. We're not waiting anymore because I know it ain't coming, and it
Right.
never came. So I never got back on the team, but I learned so much from that, and that's how my collegiate days. That's how they ended. And the last part of that was one of my best friends from that group who were like, "Dude, what are you gonna do? Like, cause you can't hang with us if you're not doing anything to help me get to college, get to Arkansas State." He had just accepted an internship um, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he said that he was there. He was cleaning out the file cabinet, and he pulled out a player profile, and lo and behold, it was me. And he had sent it to the chat that we had, and it was just like, bro, this was the potential, but this is what didn't happen. So it could be bittersweet. It was bitter because, like, man, I missed it, but really what it was God was preparing me for those who would come behind me that would be in similar situations, and I
Yeah.
can tell my story and get my testimony to say, "Hey, keep going, lock in, focus up." So that's my athletics.
Yeah, that's good because I think people need to hear that because everybody's story ain't just clean and I went and didn't mess up because everybody messes
Yeah.
up in some form or fashion. So that's good for people to hear. And it's good that you have those friends because, like, a lot of people don't have friends that's going to be like, bro, what you doing? And put you in your place. So that's even more beneficial to say, like, you need to get you some good friends because that's important because they could easily be like, bro, that's on you and just let you
Yes.
go and let you go on. So that's good knowledge to even have good friends. And again, and when you got to college, like, we and I try to stress this because I feel like a lot of just in athletics in general, I think we as the athletes we focus so much on the coach, but their job is not to be our friends in the first place. So
So good.
we gotta remind like, bro, I'm out here dribbling this ball. Yes, they love us because I'm dribbling the ball for them or I'm catching the pass or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's your teammates. Like at the end of the day, it's you out here for yourself, like you said, God for yourself, and then for your teammates. Like don't because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, you probably gonna have those. Your relationships are gonna come more from your teammates than it is. You probably not gonna have a relationship. I don't care how great a relationship you have for 4 years with that college coach. That relationship is gonna end as soon as you stop doing what you're doing for them on that field. So it's good for kids to hear like I was prideful, but that's teaching me and that's taught me to where I am today. So
Yeah.
that's good. That's good. So, we hadn't gotten into what you do now and what you're doing today, but like even though you went through kind of self-inflicted hardships along the way,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
what has inspired you and pursued you to your this let us know what your current career path is going and how what inspired you like to go that way and how has athletics taught you when transitioning into your professional career today.
Yes. I think that's a great question. So, I'm gonna frame it a little different because it's easy to just come out and say, "Hey, this is where I work at. This is what I do."
Yeah.
But really, what my motivation is to teach. I'm a teacher at heart. So when another thing for a lot of people is to find out what your giftedness is, find out what your talent is, and for me, my number one gift, spiritually, on top of that, is teaching. So that's my motivation. My motivation is to always be in a position to where I can teach. And then who I teach to, my market is to youth, but it's also to fathers and sons because now I've come from just being a youth and just being a son to now I'm a father of seven. I'm a husband. So that is who I'm always looking and seeking to be able to teach to. And my message is, hey, Jesus saves, he loves, and he transforms. And however I can get into a space, whether it be through a job, whether it be through a ministry, whether it be through whatever, that's my motivation, that's my market, that's my message, and it doesn't change. So for me now, right now, what I'm doing is God brought back college pain and hardship, but relationships full circle. So I work for one of my college teammates who I came to Christ alongside and was in his discipleship group, and so he has a foundation, a Devoted Dreamers Foundation, and I am a program coordinator for that foundation, and basically being able to create programs and implement programs that are centered around youth development and being able to empower and equip leaders, youthful leaders, so that they can be make a difference and have an influence for their tomorrow. So that is what I do primarily for work. But in addition to that, I have something that I am in the process of launching. It's called Cross Me, Crown Me. And that's something that God gave me back in 2016, and that's centered around mentorship. That's centered around coaching, and being able to just be that light and make a difference and be able to provide impact in uh, young men and men's lives as well. So with that, I also am a minister at my church. So I get opportunities to preach, opportunities to teach, and not just in my church, but be able to travel around. I'm in seminary. I'm getting my Master's of Divinity in Expository Preaching, and then going into the PhD program for biblical exposition with a minor in biblical theology. So um, some years down the road, it'll be Dr. Victorian. So I'm excited about that because really what I am at heart is a doctor, and I'm a doctor for sin. Because when you look at all the statistics and you see the leading causes of death, when you really get down to it from a spiritual perspective, the leading cause of death is sin.
Yeah.
And so, just giving some scripture with that, Romans 6:23 says, "For the wages of sin is death, but the free gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus." So that's really what I am. I pride myself in being a doctor, and a doctor to be able to treat people's sin ailments. And I don't have the answer; Jesus does, and I just point them in that direction by using my giftedness of teaching. So that's what I do right now. But to be able to draw the bridge and connect it, the passion and the motivation from that is all the mistakes that I've made.
Yeah.
And because God has been so gracious and so merciful to me, I know that it's for a purpose. And so when you know your purpose, it gives you power. And then with that power, we're older now, so a lot of people have dreams, but you got to be able to have some money or some provision to be able to back that dream. And so when you understand your purpose and you get power, then you get provision to be able to live that out and see that come to fruition. So, my biggest motivation, my biggest passion is to help bend the learning curve,
Yeah.
to help people who I see who were young Vicks and going in the direction that I'm going,
Yeah.
and to be able to say, young man, pump the brakes,
Yeah.
and be able to get outside of yourself and see this for what it really is and what God is really trying to do. And I can do that for the rest of my life because that's something that when you look for a job, when you look for a career, when you look to start a business,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be able to fill some type of gap. And that gap of people being in sin and that gap of young people needing to have knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, that's never gonna stop.
No.
And so I'm always somehow, some way gonna be able to be employed because that's just who I am and that's what I do.
Yeah. No, that's good. And obviously, your upbringing and the path that you took, did you even see yourself doing that? Like, where did you,
Absolutely.
outside of being a professional athlete, I'm sure that was a dream of yours, but like to go from mistake after mistake and mistake and have to be sent home, like when you became a Christian or whatever, was that even something that you thought you would be doing, or you like how did you find your purpose for those people, those kids, or even we got adults still struggling with that. So how did
Yeah.
you find your purpose given all the trials and tribulations that you had to overcome to get to this point?
Yeah, I think that's another. I mean, that's another phenomenal question. I think it all comes down to clarity,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the biggest thing that we have to be able to be clear on is who we are and our identity.
Yeah.
And I'm just here to tell you, like, there's a lot of good stuff out there. There's a lot of mental health space and social emotional space and all of these things that they have a purpose and they serve. But if your identity is rooted in anything else other than Jesus Christ, you're gonna miss the mark.
Yeah.
And the reason that I'm sold out on that is because I didn't create me. So then if I didn't create me, I don't know the purpose of why me was created. But when I go to the creator and I see in his word that these are different purposes according to his will, then I get clear. And when I have clarity, as an athlete, this is something that we all can resonate to because, you come into a system or you go from middle school to high school, or whether you go from high school to college, or where you go from college to NFL or NBA, it doesn't change because what you have to be able to do is you have to be able to come in and learn a system.
Mm-hmm.
And the more clear you are, the more clarity you have, then you don't have to think. A lot of times, why you practice so hard at the same thing and it seems so mundane, but it's repetition, 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 building that muscle memory is because when you get clear on it, you can play faster.
Yeah.
You can see things that you otherwise wouldn't see if you have to think about, what am I supposed to do in this play? Where am I supposed to be? Then you get to the point where not only do I know where I'm supposed to be, I know where my teammates are supposed to be.
Yep.
And not only do I know where my teammates are supposed to be, I know where the defense is going to be. So now you leveling up. You leveling up. Why? Because you have that clarity. So I think for me, the biggest thing was number one, getting clarity in who I am. Because if you don't know who you are and you're searching for it externally, then you start to become carbon copies of whoever it is that has the most influence on you. And that's a very dangerous thing because we all have uniqueness. We have a unique thumbprint. We have unique eye. We have all these different type of uniquenesses. And so God created us to be us. God
Yep.
created you to be you,
Yep.
nobody else. That doesn't mean that I'm in this world by myself. No, we are in it together, but because of our uniqueness, we complement each other. So now I got identity. My identity is in Christ. I got purpose. I got power. I got provision, all because I have clarity. Now I can go into these spaces and be like, hey, I know who Vic is. So what y'all got going on? What does this foundation do? What does this organization do? What does this job do? What does this school do? And it's like, all right, cool. Well, I know what I can do. I know what my giftedness is. I know what my strengths are. So this is the value that I'm going to be able to provide in this space, no matter what the space is. I know every single time, without a shadow of a doubt, I can provide this value in this space, and the things that I am weak at, you got to find somebody else. You got to find somebody else because I'm clear. So I think the biggest thing that helped me be able to now be in a position to reach back and pull people out of the fiery furnace that I was once in is because I have that clarity.
Yeah, and also confidence. So like, speak to that. Like, how did sports shape that confidence of knowing who you? Obviously, we know we
Yeah.
got who your identity is in, and that's like a two-part question. So, two-part question was obviously where did sports have a role in your confidence, and then also explain how because I feel like athletes struggle with that identity. I feel like at some point in their athletic career, like they all need to identify as an athlete, and I feel like so many
Yes.
people struggle with that. So we can kind of answer that if you can answer both of those. Like, where did you gain that confidence from, and then where did you get that clarity for like when did it click for you? What was your like? How did you go about as far as finding like your identity that you kind of transition from like I'm a football player to who I am now as where my
Yeah.
identity plays now.
Yeah. No, for sure. So I think that you have aha moments, but it's progressive. Truth is progressive. So what I mean by that is even today, being where I'm at now, at the maturity level that I am at now, spiritually and everything else falls into place. I know that it's not going to be where I'm at in 3 years. I should be progressing. So I think that it was just more than anything life experiences.
Mm.
Going from in 2012 graduating college because I did graduate and I did get my bachelor's, even though I got kicked off the team. I did graduate, so we got to be able to point that out. I finished
Yeah.
academically, and that was the biggest struggle for me, the biggest opposition, because, like you said, it was self-inflicted. Because oftentimes, if we just being real, yeah, school is hard, but a lot of times we make it harder than what it has to be because we're not consistent and persistent like we are in athletics. And the truth be told, how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you slacking off academically and you get with somebody who knows the game, they'll be able to open it up and look at you athletically and be like, yeah, bro, you may not think so, but you missing it here too. And so being
Yeah.
able to being able to understand that piece, graduating in 2012, and then you fast forward to 2014. In 2014, my life changed dramatically because I met my wife, and I met my wife in May of 2014, and then we got married in October of 2014.
Mm.
So now here I am going from the college athlete, the football player, and I'm back home and I'm St. Louis. Now I'm husband, and so my family is blended. We have 7 children, but My oldest was from a previous relationship with me, and then the next two are from a previous relationship with my wife. So I came into the marriage with technically three children, but and we don't have to necessarily, but my story is complex, so this is more than a podcast. But I came into the marriage with two children that I knew of, and so my wife's two, and so I went from me, myself, and I to husband and father to, at the time, they were two going on three and four going on five when I first met my wife. So I had instantly two children, a wife, and then we married, so we ain't wasting no time. And then a year later, we have our first child together. So essentially, in a year and a half time, I went from me, myself, and I to a wife and three children by the end of 2015. And if that doesn't grow you up,
Yeah.
then I don't know if there's any hope for you. I say that jokingly, but
No, but for real,
you
having
start
two,
to look at
yeah,
yeah, you start to look at life
different.
totally different.
Hmm.
And for me, I needed that
Yeah.
because I can easily look back and say, well, if I knew what I knew now, well, if I didn't, truth is, if I didn't go through what I went through, then I probably still wouldn't know what it is that I know now. So, you just got to be able to thank God for the things that He allows to happen. People give the devil too much credit because, yeah, he is evil and he's trying to steal, kill, and destroy, but Satan can't do anything with God allowing him to do it. And so the question is, well, why would a good God allow the devil to do? And it's like He's allowing it because there's a greater purpose behind what the enemy is trying to do, because he always overplays his hand. So those experiences from middle school, high school, college, now I'm getting into life, and I have a wife and I have three children, and we're going through things, because you can only imagine how tough that is. Like I told you, the
Yeah.
first three children are from previous relationships. So we come into a marriage with brokenness,
Yeah.
and we're looking around, and in our families, you see a lot of divorce. You see a lot of, single parent household, single family. You're coming from a lot of brokenness. So it's like you can't fix yourself if you're broken. You have to be able to go to something or someone who is complete. And that, first and foremost, going back to identity, you have to go to Christ. You have to be able to spiritually have a firm foundation. And then from there, because my wife came into the marriage with a spiritually firm foundation, and I came into the marriage with a spiritually firm foundation, not saying that we were perfect, but we always could go back to that foundation through trials and tribulations. And so, yeah, I had a wife and I had, three children, a greater responsibility, but now I'm doing life together with someone. Now I have someone, being able to cover my six, cover my back, and say, hey, watch out for this. What are you doing here? So on and so forth. Now, listen, please, for anybody that's watching this podcast, what I am not saying is, man, I got to go get married.
No.
That is not,
That's what we.
that is not what I'm saying
Right.
at all. But what I'm saying, with my experience and how God did it for me, that was a tremendous help in gaining more competence.
Right.
Because competence, which simply is know-how, it leads to confidence.
Yeah.
So the more that I know how to do something, the more confident, the more ready I am to be able to get out there and go and do it. For example, like right now, um, my hooping. If I had the competence that I had right now hooping when I was younger, hey, I might have been able to go be a point guard somewhere.
Yeah.
Even if I was a sixth man, because my know-how, I know how to use my body, I know how to use my left and my right, and so on and so forth. I'm saying this because NeNe and I just finished hooping a few weeks ago, so feeling some type of way over a hoop game. But competence, going back to competence, when you have that know-how and you get that know-how through experiences. So
Right.
a lot of times we're looking for a quick fix.
Yep.
We are in, a microwave generation, and
Yep. Yep.
the media and society is pushing that, and we want things right now, if not yesterday.
Yep.
But with that, it's not building roots. It's not building people who are sustainable, who are able to go through trials and tribulations and walk through the fire and come out, not smelling like smoke, referring to the fiery furnace in Daniel. But you got to be able to go through those things, and it takes time.
Yes.
It takes time, and time is so precious because when you go through things over time, it's building muscles that you didn't even know you had. It's building different type of perspectives, and then you have people come into your life who you never knew, and they compliment you and things like that. So that's where I'm at in my life now because of so much time and so much experience. And I know for the young people that are going to hear this podcast, it's like, bro, I want to be able to bend the learning curve. I want to be able to know what you know right now so that I have, and yes, that's great, but sometimes life is the best teacher.
Yeah.
Life is the best teacher. You just have to go through. But the beautiful thing about it is going back to identity, going back to that firm foundation in Christ. When you know that you have that, you know that you're going to go through. And so it doesn't matter what it is that comes your way, because when you come out of it, you're coming out of it so much better than you went in.
Yes, and creating that just perseverance as well. Because if you don't
Mm-hmm.
go through some of those things, I think you don't really, you look back and don't appreciate some of those stuff. Because we can always, those the athletes in us can be like, if I didn't get this energy, if I didn't do that, like I would have been this place, and then I'm just like, I get the question. People ask me a question all the time because I had a few injuries at Arkansas State, but I'm just like, honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I would still go to Arkansas State knowing what I know now. I would still choose Arkansas State.
Mm-hmm.
I would still go through XYZ injuries because it did teach you a lot. It teach you a lot. Like you can it can be taken from you at any point, and that's what I learned. Like,
Yes.
my ability to bounce a basketball, whatever, can be taken at any point. So what do you do?
Yes.
So what do you like? So like now
Mm-hmm.
it's like, where's your identity really lie? Um,
Yes.
so that was probably for me at Arkansas State, like tearing that ACL probably was a wake up call for me because it's just like I'd never been injured before in my life. Yeah, I thought I was invincible. Like I ain't never
Yeah.
been hurt, and so
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you think, and when you bring up a good point, because that is what we say. If I would have did X, Y, and Z, then I would have been in the league. That's how it
yeah,
always ends. But truth be told, all right, let's play that out. Even if you did do what you were supposed to do then, and you make it to the league, there's going to come a point where your body is going to tap out.
yeah,
There's going to come a point where you have to throw the towel in and say, this is it. I can't go anymore. Then what?
all right,
So even for our people that do make it professionally, at some point
it's
you're
going
not going to be a professional playing the sport. So
correct.
then how do you remain how do you keep that professionalism just in life in general after that? So these are questions, these are things that everybody has to wrestle with. It's just a matter of when,
When
not if.
yeah, that's good because yeah, you gotta. And I just hate to see it sometimes, and that's probably one of the reasons of this podcast because I hate to see those. And I'm not trying to crush nobody's dreams, but like at some point we gotta just hang it up. Like it's just like we gotta we gotta be able to just be okay with not being an athlete anymore, or
Yes.
we know what like at heart yes, and I can go out there and give you a few buckets, but like it has to end. Like you said, at what point is it going to end? And I knew myself like if I would have I like play it out. Like if I would have made it to the WNBA, of course it was going. It's a 12-man roster. Like I could have made it and then cut the next day. So it's like
Yes.
it's just so I hate to see it when it's so hard for people just to hang up that athlete. Like just to hang up those
Mm,
cleats and hang it up, and it breaks my heart because I'm just like, yo, you are so much more than
yes.
you're so much more than that, and it's so
Absolutely.
sad to see. I have friends that play like it just breaks my heart, but and just know that it's all an identity crisis. At the end, at the conclusion of it all, it's like you're struggling with that identity and having to
Yes.
let that stuff go. So
Yeah.
that's like the gist of obviously and the reason for the podcast. But just some inspiration. So like you got a Vic, like you said, you got a young Vic coming through going through some of the similar stuff. What is the number one like advice would you give that person that's like similar background, going through what you're going through, grades not making it, the same kind of situation? What's your what's your advice you would have thought you would have received if you did not had already received it, and then like what do you offer kids if you're involved with kids? What advice do you offer
Yes.
them?
So I think that it really comes down to questions and something that we don't learn at a young age that, I try to stress to the younger Vics or just, the fathers or just men in general is the importance of questions because really we think that whoever does the most talking is the person that's controlling the conversation when actually that's not the case. It's the person that asked the question because the person that asked the question got you talking. And then when they ask the next question, they're gonna have you talking. And basically, what they're doing is they're taking you down this road and getting the information that it is that they want through their questions. So for a young Vic, I'm coming to him and I'm asking questions because the goal is to be able to have it scaled. And what I mean by that is to the point where now you're asking those questions when you're going through the things that you're going through. And so, for example, the number one question that comes to mind is, then what? So you come across a young Vic and it's like, hey, what what do you want to do? I want to be an athlete. Okay, cool. Then what? All right. Well, I want to be an athlete in this sport so that I can, make money. Okay. Then what? Well, if I make money, then I can be able to buy my mom's a house. All right. Okay. Then what? And then I can help whoever else needs help. Okay. Then what? And so you you
You
can
get
just
the
keep going on and on and on and on again with then what, and really you get to the root of it. And let's just stop at the root of it is you want to be able to buy your mom a house. All right, what are you really saying there? You want to be able to give back to your mom. You want to be able to make sure that y'all have financial freedom or some type of financial security. Here comes the curveball. Is athletics the only way that you can do that?
all right.
And truth be told, in certain cultures, it's taught that this is the only way that you can do it, or entertainment, or
Yep.
something where you got to be able to, going back to identity, be somebody.
Be some.
And really, and really you can't, and the way that they tell you to do it is you got to be able to have this so you can do this so you can be this. And really that order is all out of whack because you got to really be able to be this in order to do this,
Yep.
and then you can have this. So it all starts with the being. It all starts with who you are. So then going back to that young Vic that says that he wants to be able to make sure that mom's taken care of. All right, so is that the only way that you can do this? And then the question is, what are other ways? And now you start to peel back the onion and you see that it's really not so much that you want to be an athlete, it's more so that you just haven't been exposed to a lot.
Right.
And so then we have to start digging deeper and saying, well, what did you get? What are you gifted at? Okay, besides you can run fast, you can jump high, you can shoot the ball really good, you got great hands. Outside of that,
Yeah.
or even in that, what is something that people say when either you're playing, but it has nothing to do with you playing, and like in regards to, man, you're a really good communicator.
Right.
Or where we come from, bro. Why you talk like that? Why you talking so proper? No, you just effectively communicating. So
Right.
you can communicate well, man. Why you always got to jump up and take the lead? You want to lead everything. You want to tell everybody what they. Okay, maybe you got great leadership skills. Maybe you do really good at delegating. So it's like finding those gifts and then being able to say, where can you maximize those gifts at? Where can you go and live those gifts out? Have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing that? And as you can see, I'm not saying much. I'm asking a lot of questions so that that young Vic can say much. And when you do that to you, and really, the only time that you should say much is when you're doing it to yourself. But oftentimes we find out that that's when we saying the least because we haven't put that work in when it comes to getting identity of who we are, what we're purposed for, what we're gifted at, and how can we take that out into the communities that we in, into the city, into the state, nationally, and be able to really make an impact and a difference. And that's what we were created for. So it's really just asking those questions. I come across a young Vic and I'm just asking questions, and those questions are leading to more questions. And what's happening is there's serious work that's taking place that goes deeper than the surface. Because another thing is, we want everything quick in this day and age, but we also are very surface.
Yes.
Very few people want to go deep.
No, don't
A
want to.
lot of people, hey, how you doing? Oh man, I'm doing great, man. It's raining outside, man. This weather is crazy, man. It's been raining all week. Oh yeah, man. But everything good? Yeah, everything good. Family good? Yeah, everything good. All right, man. It was good seeing you. Oh, I saw so and so the other day. Oh, how they doing, man? They doing good, man. Family doing good. Man, you don't know what this person got going on. You ain't asked no questions.
No questions.
This person, mama could have just died, and because they don't want to go there for whatever reason, and because you didn't ask them how they doing, and they hit you with a fine, and you really don't care. You just really just making conversation because you so caught up in yourself, and because when they ask you how you doing, you tell them everything that you got going on, and so it's just becoming more cognizant through those questions. And the reason that you ask questions is not just to ask questions, but you seeking first to understand. Because once you understand somebody, then you can be understood because now you're effectively communicating. So through those questions, it's like, all right, I'm not just asking you questions just to be asking questions.
Right.
In order to really ask good questions, there has to be some genuine concern of what you really got going on. So for another example, like if I come across a young man who I ask him how he's doing, and I've been observing him, and he hits me with an answer that's just like, "Yeah, I'm cool." Well, my next question is, "You just cool? You just cool?" Like it's all these different things that you could have said. You just cool,
Yeah.
and it's like, "Yeah, I'm just cool." What does that mean?
Right.
And it's like, well, and then so you gotta be if you really want to, and that's the thing. That's why people like to stay on surface because it takes work to go deeper. It takes work to find out who you really are
Yeah.
versus just cutting on social media. Oh, I like this person. I like this entertainer, I like this rapper, I like this athlete. I'm just gonna mold myself. I'm just gonna do what they do.
Yeah.
That's easy. That doesn't take any work. And I'm not saying not to have role models. I'm not saying not to have mentors. I'm not saying not to have people who you can model your game, model your life after. That's cool. But you got to be able to do the hard work on who you are.
Yeah.
And then you can take bits and pieces of what other people are doing, but it still has to have that uniqueness on it. Because we don't need another Michael Jordan. We already have Michael Jordan. Yeah, you can come and be another great basketball player, but we don't need another MJ.
Right.
We need you, and you can have the skill level, you
Yeah.
can have the skill set, but we don't need another MJ. We need another you. So everybody just got to be able to understand that we need another you. We
Right.
need a you. We don't need another somebody else. And how do we get that? We get to that by being able to dig deeper and do that hard work through asking questions.
Yeah, and that's good. And it's a little bit off subject, but like when you said that asking questions, but I also think that obviously we live in a society where we won't be surface level, but I also think like if you do go deep, I don't think the people receiving the information really want you to go deep, only because then that has a responsibility with that, right? Now we got to do something. So if I'm asking you a
Yeah.
question, Vic, and I'm asking you deep questions, now you didn't tell me all this information, so now I'm like, what am I have to do something with it. I can't just be like, oh, he just told, and then like it's not, a little bit got to be reciprocated there. So it's like almost
Yes.
bearing each other's burdens, and I don't think most people want to do that, and that's why they say surface level, and I struggle with that as far as like small talk. So I'm not a huge small talker, and so people think
Amen.
like since I don't do small talk that I'm rude or mean. I'm just like, I don't like small talk and surface level conversation doesn't really do much. So I might either I just don't talk at all, or I'm just gonna tell you. Like if you ask the questions, I will tell you. Now I'm not gonna freely give you the information, but like because I feel like
Right.
certain people only have that privilege. But I just think most people don't want to take on that burden of knowing your information, and then they have to
Yeah.
do something with that. You just can't just be like, oh, I'm so sorry for you, and like walk off. Like you just had a deep conversation. Like
Yeah.
it gotta be either reciprocated or we gotta do something. And I don't think people want to do it. I mean, this is lip service, like you said. They just say lip service of like, oh yeah, I'm fine doing this. And I had a conversation when I first had a kid. I was like, Jabari, I was like, I don't know where it came from, but I was just like, when you have a kid, like I said, people are gonna just disappear. He's like, what do you mean they're gonna disappear? I said, because now they can't just call you up and be like, let's go this place and I can go this place. Now I got to think about,
Yeah.
like, if I got a babysitter. And so most people don't want to go through those filters or be a good friend and be like, oh, I know, like, just let me know, like, if you can come and if you need a baby, like, help out in that situation. So, or they'll say, when the baby come, I'll babysit. I'm like, bro, don't say that if you really don't mean that. And I think people just say that because it's a baby. Oh, and then I'll call them as like an excuse. I'm like, oh, you babysit, and I'm just like, and I knew it was gonna happen. To you got not every friend was like that, but certain people just, and I just rather you just not say it at all, not offer your
Yeah.
services if you really don't mean it. And so that, and I'm
Yeah.
that friend. Like, call me. I told my friends this. I was like, listen, I will watch your kids, but I need to be your last resort. Like,
Right.
you didn't exhausted all your other options, and then come to
Right.
me. And if you did, I'll watch your kids. Like, I will do that. But I'm not gonna sit here and be
Yeah.
like, hey, call me first. I want to watch it. Like, no, I'm not that person. But I'm gonna be honest with you. And I think in a society now, I think truth and honesty is so, it's like kind of, it's almost like a negative connotation. I feel like
Yeah.
being truthful and being honest about situations, and it just, and I don't, and I grew up in a situation where, like, I don't know nothing else but to be honest and truthful to people. And I feel like
Yeah.
in today's society, it's just like a lost art almost. Like, most people rather be lied
Mhm.
to than having to sit in truth or be told the truth. And just a little off subject when you were saying that, I'm just like, it's so true, the
No, that's
society
good.
that we live in. Like, you can't just hack somebody, um, their stuff and get deep with them and just be like, oh, okay. Because then now that's your, like, you got to do something with that. And nobody wants to ever
Absolutely.
do anything with that information or actually show up for that person or be that person's friend on a more deeper level when you're asking those questions and people are going deeper. I just think both, and like, people want to be surface level, but people also don't want to hear people's stuff and actually have to do something about it or help them or whatever. Because they're like, oh, well, I got my stuff going on. Everybody got stuff going on at the end of the day. Like,
Everybody.
everybody got
Everybody.
something going on, but again, you're supposed to, like, be there for your neighbor, and I think, no, like, nobody wants to do that because that's actually, you have to live in community with people when you know that
Yeah.
information. And so I think that's the tough part. I think it's on both ends. Folks is surface.
Yes, absolutely, and that's a great point that you make. I don't even think it's off subject whatsoever because it's more so like, hey, we got to pull over and make this pit stop because this is a pit stop that needs to be made. Because really what you're saying is another dirty word. It's accountability.
Mm-hmm.
It's challenge. For me being a teacher that I am, it's biblical principle of to much is given, much is required. So if you tell me too much, now I'm required to be able to, in my capacity, in my giftedness, be able to do something about it. But the truth of the matter is, if you're not gifted in watching kids, or you're not passionate about watching kids, then going back to truth and honesty, hey, that's not what I do. You got some, you know, the friends that you got, like, no, I'm not watching your kids.
Yeah,
Don't
for sure.
call me. Like, don't call me. If you need me to show up and somebody else gonna be there, then I can come and pop up. But that's not what I do.
Okay.
And that's okay because that's somebody that says, hey, I know what my strengths are. I know what my talents are. I know what my giftedness is. And that's not it. That's okay. But like you said, it goes back to you just got to be truthful. You got to be honest. And the problem with people being truthful and being honest is it goes back to their work, their word work. And people think that work is a curse, but when you go and you read Genesis, you see that God created work before the curse. And so when you're working, that's a good place to be in. That's a good space to be in. But everything that you really want is gonna take some work.
Facts, for sure. That's good. So, for last call to action, what are some key takeaways that you hope that whoever listens to this, the listeners listen to this podcast, take away? What are, like, some your big three that they, when they listen to it, that they catch?
Yeah. So number one for me is always gonna be the same, no matter where I'm communicating. Is the number one is going to be that identity in Christ, that identity in Jesus Christ. That has to be number one. You got to be able to have that relationship with Jesus and be able to know whose you are, because when you know whose you are,
Yeah.
then you'll know who you are. And that's the order of it. Anything else is out of order. And the Bible talks about doing things decently and in order. So if you have that number one, that relationship with Jesus, then everything else is going to fall into place. Now, when I say everything else is going to fall into place, I don't mean that you're going to have a big house, you're going to have nice cars, you're going to have all the best clothing. I'm not talking about falling in place in regards to prosperity. I'm talking about falling into place in regards to purpose, in regards to power. And then when you know your purpose and you're operating in the power, then the provision will come. But you got to be able to be at that point in your relationship where okay, this is what I need. Yeah. This is what I want. And so that can segue into number two. Number two, after that identity in Christ is number one. You're rooted. That's your firm foundation. Then it goes back to asking the questions, and you have to be able, before you can ask other people the questions, you got to be able to ask yourself the question of, what is it that I really want and why? Yeah. And then after you answer that question and you give your why and you get that, then what? Then what? Then what? Because those then whats, oftentimes they're going to allow you to get underneath that surface and really go deep, because you'll find out that, man, I've been wanting something that really didn't come from God, and it's not from me. It's from somebody else, that from either listening to them or seeing them, that it rubbed off on me. And as a result, I've been trying to live out something that ain't God given, right, and it doesn't connect with me. And so it goes back to when I was talking about asking questions. If you don't have the genuineness to really know the answer, then you're not gonna ask the question. And if you do ask the question, you get the answer, you're not really gonna do anything with it. So you got to be able to have that sincerity and really want to know behind those questions that you're asking, first to yourself, and then secondly, being able, when you're in those conversations, to be able to ask those questions. And then third would be just having the right people around you. I'm on this podcast today because of who I'm surrounded by. We have our relationship, your husband and I, we have our relationship because the people that we have in our circle. And so what I tell people all the time is, everybody that you meet is not supposed to be in your circle. You got people that come on divine assignment. You got people that's supposed to be here for just one meeting. You got people that's supposed to be here for weeks. You got people that's supposed to be here for a lifetime. But as you start getting into that longer span of people consistently being in your life, you start to look at the model that Jesus had. And Jesus had 12 disciples, but even in having them 12, he had three that he rocked with, Peter, James, and John, that went everywhere with him. So it's like, I tell people, man, if you got three that's in your circle, that is a powerful circle. If you got 12 that they may not be there every single time, but you can go to them on a consistent, man, that's powerful. But when you look at that circle, you got to always be asking those questions. And those questions that you always asking got to be able to go back to identity. Because if you got people in your circle that don't know who they are, if you got people in your circle that they're not trying to go deep, they stay in surface, then the Bible says that iron sharpens iron. And if you got paper, so if you're surrounded by paper, then you're not going to be getting sharpened. But what you are going to be doing is you're going to be becoming more weaker and weaker, where you're going to look up and you're going to be plastic. Because whoever we surround ourselves around, we do become. And that's just not something that somebody wrote, and then that's just a figure of speech. That's real. We are all products of our environment. And oftentimes, if you want the product to change, hey, you got to be able to change the environment. And for the people who, their excuse is, well, especially young people, you may not have a car. You may stay with your parents. You may stay in the hood. You may stay in, Beverly Hills, lifestyles of the rich and famous. But guess what? Everybody in that environment doesn't necessarily have those first two that I talked about. And because you can't get out of that, don't mean you can't cut on a YouTube. Don't mean you can't cut on a podcast like more than 94, and listen consistently to people who are coming on this podcast who are where you're trying to get or walking in the same direction of you, to be able to say, you know what, the people that's around me, I can't allow that to be my environment. So I'm gonna pull myself out, be able to listen consistently to people who are where I'm trying to get to. And so when I do go back into the environment that is my actual physical surrounding, I can bring these things to them. And when I bring these things to them, based on how they respond, I can either go deeper, or I can say, all right, I know what that relationship is. All right, this relationship is this. I got to be able to have these people at an arm's distance. I got to be able to have these people at 2 arms distance. I got to have this person at a whole body's distance because I can't be close to them. But it's helping you in regards to that environment, because it all comes down to exposure. Like, if you don't know, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So in order to have people around you, everybody's unique, everybody's thinking different. So you're gonna have people that bring different things and shed different lights on you. So finding a podcast like this, finding a YouTube channel, reading a book. The most important book that I recommend is the Bible. 66 books. Like, where should I start in reading the Bible? I was just having this conversation with my auntie on the phone. Anywhere that you open up and you start reading the Bible is a good place to be able to read the Bible. So you got to be able to have those things that are stretching your mind, because the mind stretch never goes back to its normal capacity. And you do that from having people, asking questions, and making sure that your identity is rooted in Christ.
Yes, and then you got to, like you said previously, you got to become that person, right? So you can't be a surface level person looking for people that are deep, or looking for. So you got to become that person in order to get those 3 people, because you can't just be like, I'm gonna be surface level with everybody and then expect nobody to be surface level with you. So
yes, you can't expect from other people what you don't expect from yourself.
Correct. So that's good. That's good. Well, thanks for sharing your insights with us today, Vic. It was really good. It was really
Absolutely.
good. We got
It's a pleasure.
a lot of nuggets today. It was real informational.
Good.
And so
Good.
that's
God.
A wrap.
It's too easy, you lay up a finger roll. This morning, listen,